The average military member will attend a minimum of 4 temporary duty assignments in their 20-year career. What's a temporary duty assignment? The acronym for that is called a TDY. So that means I get orders and they say, Sergeant Woods, we need you to go to Mississippi for 6 weeks to go to school. Okay, that's not uncommon. Sometimes we have trainings that can't be done on a computer. But I have 2 children, so what do I do with those 2 children those 6 weeks that I'm away? Any of you ever heard of a family care plan? So a family care plan is this package of documents that a military member has to fill out if they have children. And the family care plan is broken down into these sections. So the first section says, who are you going to leave your children with if you have to leave for 7 days to 120 days? If you have to leave from a week to 4 months, who are you going to leave your children with? The person that you're going to leave your children with has to sign this, they have to notarize it, and they have to say, yes, I'm going to be responsible for these kids if this military member leaves for a week or 4 months. That person might not be in the same city. That person might be back at home. Then there's another section that says, well, if you have to leave for 121 days to 180 days, 4 months to 6 months, who's going to take care of your children? That person has to sign this document, legally kind of binding them and making them responsible for your children if you're called to go TDY. Then there's a third section that says from 181 days to 366 days, who's going to be responsible for your children when the military gives you orders to deploy? And these documents are so serious, right? Like at the time when I was in the military, I physically had to take them to people to have them sign and notarize them. And the wet signatures had to be turned in. I was like, man, okay, so I got one person here that'll be able to hang on to my kids for 6 weeks. If I get deployed, that person's in Alabama. So I have to FedEx this document to this person to take it, get it notarized, and you have to FedEx it back to me because I must have your wet signature. Who's going to take care of my kids for a year? I don't know nobody that like my kids for a year. This could be a problem. But it is. This is what takes place, and this is the nature of having to serve your country and be a child. So as a parent, I'm looking at this document, and I'm saying, I can't afford a TDY for a year. I don't have that kind of support to leave my children with anybody for a year. What's going to happen to my kids if I leave for a year? And if you can't secure a family care plan, that means you can't serve. You're not fit for duty. Yeah, it's that intense. Like a whole review board and everything. So these children really do go through a significant amount of having to kind of be shifted and moved around. I'm filling out a family care plan without ever talking to them about it. I'm just letting you know that when I go TDY, you're going to live with cousin such and such. And because the TDY is 4 months, you now have to leave school for 4 months. But then you get to come back to this school. And we might leave this school in a year. 1.2 million children endure that. Some of the psychological effects of being a military child and teen. We're going to talk about identity issues, some social awkwardness, low self-esteem, feelings of not belonging, isolation, and abandonment. Okay? Identity issues, as I stated before, the where are you from question. That is easy for an adult to answer. Imagine a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old or somebody in the 3rd grade that's transferring in the middle of the year. Oh, where did you come from? And then they have to kind of do the explanation, right, of where they came from. And sometimes kids will be kind of mean. You're not from anywhere. I heard a kid say that to a military child one time. And I was like, look, I'll fight a kid. No, I'm picking on him. He told you where he's from. It's a lot of places. But I just remember seeing him kind of like, that's my story. He was only 7. He was only 7. The acting normal, right, a part of these identity issues, trying to just kind of slide in, fit in. I'm going to learn what these kids like so I can make friends. And the older you are, the easier it is. But the truth of the matter is the younger kids are the ones that actually experience a lot more difficulty trying to become friends, to acclimate to new school systems. I have a friend that just PCS'd. PCS means permanent change of station. And she just PCS'd from Florida to Texas in March. So here's the deal. The military doesn't try to line up your orders with the summertime for your kids. They will move you smack in the middle of the year. And that is just what it is. So she pulled her children out of school before spring break in Florida, gave them the spring break here in Texas to get their home and get all their stuff situated. And then they started school after spring break, which we know is the end of the term, right? School's getting ready to end. And they have what's really big in Florida called the STEM, where they do a lot of the science and math stuff. That's not big here yet. So she was saying how excited she was that, her kids were walking into a school district that was a lot different, but they struggled. They struggled. They were once straight A's, and now they're making B's and C's. And she's looking like, what have I done to my kids? Like, when we move in 3 years and go to California, where are they going to be? And this was a conversation that we had as she was, looking at various places in San Antonio to purchase her home based on the school district. She said, I don't care about being close to the base. I have to be somewhere that the kids are going to get the education they need. Aisha, where do I move? And I was like, ooh, it's a little tough. But those are the things that these kids have to endure as well. They're walking in a classroom with this, I do very well in school, and now they're taking tests and getting C's and D's. What happened? Did they teach me anything? Social awkwardness, new friends, new school, as I hit on just a moment ago, the difficulty that can be. What does your mom and dad do? Oh, the story. I hear a lot of kids just say, oh, they're in the military. But they're much more than just in the military. They're nurses, they're chaplains assistants, they're IT people, they're records people, they're paralegals. They have jobs, and sometimes that's difficult for a child to explain. I hear all the time, oh, did you fly planes? Whenever I do any presentation talking about being in the military. No, I didn't fly planes, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh. We don't have any more questions. Did you shoot anybody? Well, can I say that to you? I don't know. But it's not cool, right? But for a child, your parents don't fly a plane. Oh, they didn't do anything. So now the kid's just like, God, Mom, you suck. You don't do anything in the military. These short-term absences. What takes place when the parent gets the TDY that's only going to be 6 months? I was a single parent that had 2 kids, so my kids didn't get to stay put. They had to go where my family was. So now I'm having to pack you up and put you on a plane, enroll you in school, go back to deploy, then come back and get you, then take you back home. And not one time, 2, 3, sometimes 4 times in a career. That is intense on a child, intense. Low self-esteem, military-style rules at home. If any of you had military parents, you probably make a bed like nobody's business. You got 45-degree angles cut to the gods. I was this person. I went from being a 24-year-old bachelorette, getting ready to start my master's, had just bought my first home, and the next day I tripped over a toy. And what is this? Why is this on the floor? And my sister was like, I was playing with that. I wasn't prepared. They weren't prepared. So we're kind of looking at each other like, well, this bed is not made, and blah, 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 blah. I didn't take the time to say, hey, this is how you do this. This is how you do that. In my mind, you should know. And that created some issues for my sister, and I didn't realize it until one day she wrote me a note and slid it under my door and asked if she could have a snack. I had terrified her so much. She didn't know she could go to the kitchen and get a Rice Krispie treat. And I felt horrible. I had brought my lifestyle home and created an expectation for her that was it was unattainable. Not to mention she got here via CPS. So whatever she was doing and dealing with before, and then I'm adding on to it, I'm so glad she's 16 and she's doing fantastic now, because I could have screwed her up. I could have screwed her up. Not purposely, but just as me, being a military person and bringing that home. A lot of children deal with that. There's a higher expectation at home when you have parents that are military. There are just some things that they just harp on that truly don't matter, but it's a function of who they are. It's what allowed them to become as successful as they are in the military. So their thought is, let me pass this structure and discipline down to my children, and they're going to be awesome. Some kids, that's going to work. And other kids, that's not going to work. Okay? Feelings of not belonging. Children have the feeling of not belonging. I'm different from the other people. I look different. I talk different. That's a big one when they have been somewhere so long and they have developed the cultural accent, and then they move somewhere else. And the kids are like, what? You talk funny. And then they say, okay, I'm just gonna be quiet. I don't want nobody talking about the way I talk. You dress funny. What is that? What are those kind of shoes? Where they came from, all of those things were acceptable, and now they have to learn what's acceptable here just to get prepared to have to learn what's acceptable at the next location, okay? Missing old friends and missing their old schools. This is something that can be really detrimental, especially on teenagers. What do we know about teenagers? They identify strongly with their social groups. You snatch a kid out of the 10th grade, you are looking for some trouble. I thought it was genius when President Obama said he and First Lady Michelle were going to stay put in D.C. to allow Sasha to finish school. I was like, yo, that's exactly what you do. That's exactly what you do. Military member does not have that option. If they give you orders and tell you to move in 6 months, you need to move in 5. And that means everything that you're responsible for, you must take with you. Isolation. This is a big one with older kids. I'm not going to be here long. Why do I even need to try? I'm not trying to make no friends. This is something I've experienced with some clients that I'm seeing now that are in foster care. In their mind, they're going home. Parents are going to do what they need to do. We're going to be reunited. I'm not trying to make friends. I don't want to meet anybody. I'm just going to stay in this corner. And we all know the system. That might not necessarily be true. Trying to get children to open up, to be open to their surroundings, to be open to this new environment when they know it's not a matter of we might move. They know that at some point a move is going to come. So they'll purposely isolate. They'll purposely try not to make friends. They won't engage in sports. They won't engage in extracurricular activities. I'm just going to do the bare minimum because I know in a minute we're going to go. And that's to protect themselves. I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to meet my best friend here and then you snatch me away in 2 years. Or that I have to move away in 2 years, or something happens and maybe it's not 2 years, I just have to move for a few months and then I come back and everything's changed. Okay, if I'm quiet, I don't have to explain. If I just kind of slide in and fade to the background, I don't really have to say why I'm here, how I got here. I can just say, hey, dad's job transferred. I don't have to say a word. Okay, abandonment, multiple parental separations. We know that in that first few years of life, the importance of attachment, having secure attachment, how that deals with a child's temperament. Being away from your caregiver for long periods of time can absolutely have psychological effects. And then you grow up and you're away from that caregiver again for deployments, for TDYs. The military does something now that they think is genius, and in my mind, this is the worst. They will put a TDY in conjunction with a deployment. So now you have to go TDY, this temporary duty, for 6-8 weeks, and you're going to leave there, and then you're going to deploy for 5 months. They put them together. They say, oh, it saves money. We don't have to send the member back home. This is genius. You just ripped this member away from their family for not just regular 5 or 6 months. Now they're going 8 months because they had to go to training prior to deploying. And that's the new norm. Then we have emotional disconnections. One of the things that we see a lot with military children, that same resilience that kind of makes them strong, they learn how to get along without that parent. They have to adapt. They have to figure out how to move forward, and they do so. So there's an emotional disconnection when that parent is away. There's an emotional disconnection when that parent returns. I figured this thing out while you haven't been here. I don't really need you. And that's hurtful for the parent as they try to slide back into their role and they don't know where they fit because the parent, the nuclear family, has figured out how to continue on without that parent.
We visited students at West Point Elementary and Middle Schools on the grounds of the U.S. Military Academy. And as you'll see, they bravely answer their own call to duty.
Have any of you ever had to say goodbye to your parent because they went overseas? Yeah? Ellen, can you bring me back to that place?
I think I was 7.5, and we were at the airport, and his flight was called, and it was just a really, really, really sad moment.
When the day came, me and my sister were crying, like we kept hugging him, and we didn't want him to go, so it's really sad for me.
We brought him to the airport and everything, and then we were too upset to go to school, so we stayed and we ate ice cream with Mom and started crying and stuff. So yeah.
What were you most afraid of, knowing that your dad was going to war?
If he was gonna get killed or not, and is he gonna come home?
He had a room, and you could hear bombs go off outside. So he would laugh because he was used to it, but I'd get really scared.
So while you were online chatting, you could hear them?
Yeah.
He makes us laugh at dinner, and he tells us jokes all the time, and it's a nice time with him. When he's gone, it's not really the same.
Tell me about what it was like when he came back.
I was really happy. I was jumping up and down with joy. I ran over to hug him.
I used to call her every day and I used to pray for her, hope she doesn't die or anything or get killed. And then when she came back, I was looking for her because I didn't remember her face. Then my grandma told me that was her. I was excited and I just jumped on her.
I was 4 when he came back, and I remember him getting out of the plane and me and my brother rushing up and jumping into his arms.
All the families ran. I ran to him, and I jumped, and he gave me a hug. It was really exciting.
Tell me, what's the hardest part about being a military child?
Watching your friends and family leave.
We have normal lives as kids. We go out, we'll play with our friends, hang out, and do what normal teenagers or kids will do. But sometimes it's different because we move a lot.
I was born in California.
A lot in Oklahoma.
Born in Panama.
Then I went to Virginia.
Arizona.
We moved to Hawaii.
Texas to Pennsylvania, and then now I'm here.
Wow.
I had a really hard time making friends when I was younger, but as I moved more, I made more friends easier.
I'm really proud of my dad because he's been fighting for our freedom, and he's been there the whole time when we need him.
I'm proud of my dad because I know that he risked his life to help our nation.
I'm proud of him because he always works his best, and he always tries to make our lives happy for us. And I know sometimes I always think that he's mean to me because he can't be with me, but I know that he always loves me.
The little girl said, I would be talking to him on the phone and bombs would drop. And he's laughing, right, because he's used to it. And she's probably terrified. So when she gets off of the phone with him, what thoughts going through her head? I hope that bomb doesn't hit my daddy. And she don't think this for a couple of days because he's coming home next week. For months. It's intense. These children go through a lot. The little girl said, I didn't remember what she looked like. I had to ask my grandmother to point her out so I could run to her. That's heavy. That's heavy on an adult. When I deployed, I didn't have custody of my siblings. It was just me. But I remember flying back into the U.S. and they said, welcome to Atlanta. And I was like, I made it. It was super intense. I can only imagine what it feels like for those family members standing on that other side. And what does it feel like for those family members who have people that don't ever return home? What does it feel like for those children who hugged and kissed their parents goodbye, and that was it? We don't necessarily have to think about those things as we go to work every day. Now, truth of the matter is our country is not in the safest position, but as a teacher, you don't necessarily have to say, I'm not gonna make it home. It's a possibility when I go teach, that's not gonna happen. As a banker, as a counselor, I don't leave the house in the morning and give my kids this look of, I'm gonna try to be back. I don't have to do that because I'm safe and I'm secure. These children's parents are not, and they are aware of it. That's the big deal. They're aware of it. And our media doesn't just do the most amazing job in sharing the details that they share of war, not considering these 1.2 million children who have a parent or a caregiver that's out in that place that they're flashing on TV.